I woke up Christmas morning at 27, excited to finally receive equal treatment from my parents, after working double shifts for 2 years to prove my responsibility. Walking downstairs, I found my 23-year-old sister Jessica standing beside a brand new BMW with a massive red bow, tears of joy streaming down her face while our parents beamed with pride. I approached the tree, finding only one small gift with my name on it. Inside the wrapping paper was a children's piggy bank containing exactly $2. The room fell silent as everyone stared at me, waiting. The moment felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's nightmare. I had spent the last 2 years grinding at Henderson and Associates accounting firm, working overtime every week, saving every penny I could. I had moved back home after college to help with expenses, sleeping in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by faded superhero posters from when I was 12. All because I thought this was temporary. All because I believed my parents when they said they were proud of my responsibility and work ethic. But here I stood, holding a plastic pig with Lincoln's face, staring back at me through the clear window, while Jessica caressed the leather steering wheel of a $62,000 luxury vehicle. The red bow on the hood was bigger than my entire gift. The morning sunlight streaming through the bay window made the car's midnight blue paint job gleam like something from a magazine advertisement. My father Robert cleared his throat, adjusting his reading glasses the way he always did when he was uncomfortable. My mother Linda smoothed her holiday sweater, that forced smile never leaving her face. Jessica looked between them and me, suddenly realizing the massive disparity that had just been revealed. I had arrived at this Christmas morning with such hope. For weeks, I had been dropping hints about needing a reliable car to advance my career. My 15-year-old Honda Civic was held together with prayer and duct tape, breaking down twice in the past month. I had to take ride shares to important client meetings, eating into my carefully saved money. When my parents asked what I wanted for Christmas, I mentioned that even help with a down payment on a used car would mean everything to me. Instead, I got $2. $2. The piggy bank was the kind you'd give to a 5-year-old to teach them about saving money. It was bright pink with cartoon eyes and a slot on top shaped like a smile. The irony was not lost on me. Here I was, the son who had been saving and working and sacrificing, receiving a children's toy about saving money filled with the price of a candy bar. Jessica's BMW, on the other hand, still had the dealer sticker in the window. I could see the price breakdown from where I stood. Base model $62,000. Premium package, navigation system, heated seats, sunroof. The total came to nearly $70,000, more money than I had made in the past 2 years combined. My mother finally spoke, her voice artificially cheerful. "Porter, honey, don't you love your gift? We thought it would be perfect for you to start saving up for your future." I looked at the piggy bank again, then at the BMW, then back at my parents. The math was simple. Jessica got a car worth more than most people's annual salary. I got loose change that wouldn't buy me a cup of coffee at the cheapest gas station in town. The silence stretched on, thick and uncomfortable. I could hear the grandfather clock in the hallway ticking, marking each second of my humiliation. Outside, neighbors were probably opening gifts with their families, creating warm memories they would treasure forever. Inside our living room, I was having an epiphany that would change everything. This was not an oversight. This was not a case of mismatched expectations or poor communication. This was deliberate. This was calculated. This was exactly what my parents intended. Jessica was their golden child, their investment, their future. I was the afterthought, the disappointment, the one they tolerated out of obligation. The realization hit me like ice water. All those years of feeling like something was off, like I was missing some crucial piece of information about my place in this family, suddenly made perfect sense. I was not imagining things. I was not being oversensitive. I was not failing to appreciate what I had been given. I was simply not valued the same way my sister was valued. The piggy bank felt heavier in my hands, weighted not with coins but with the crushing awareness that my parents saw me as a child who needed to learn about money, while they handed Jessica the keys to financial freedom. I set the piggy bank down on the coffee table with deliberate care, the plastic making a hollow sound against the wood. So help me understand this. Jessica gets a $70,000 car, and I get $2 in a toy? My father straightened his shoulders. that familiar defensive posture I had seen countless times throughout my childhood. Porter, your sister earned that car by graduating summa cum laude from State University. She worked hard for her degree. And what exactly have I been doing for the past 2 years? Playing video games? You have a job, my mother interjected, as if that somehow explained everything. Jessica needed transportation to start her career. I need transportation too. My car has broken down twice this month. I had to miss the Morrison Industries presentation because my engine died in the parking lot. Jessica finally spoke up, her voice small. Porter, maybe Mom and Dad can help you with a down payment next year. Next year? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean after I've spent another year riding the bus to work while you drive around in luxury? The memories started flooding back, each one a piece of a puzzle I had been too naive to assemble before. Jessica's college fund, fully paid for by our parents, while I worked nights at a pizza place to afford community college. Her spring break trips to Cancun and Miami while I stayed home to help Dad with yard work. Her designer clothes shopping sprees while I bought my work shirts at Target. Remember when Jessica wanted that MacBook Pro for her sophomore year? I asked, looking directly at my parents. You bought it the same day. When I needed a laptop for my accounting classes, you told me to save up for it myself. That was different, Dad said quickly. Jessica's major required specific software. Accounting software is pretty specific too. But I bought my own laptop, my own software, my own textbooks. I paid for my own gas to drive to classes. I bought my own food because meal plans were too expensive. And you know what? I was fine with all of that because I thought you were teaching me responsibility. I was pacing now, the words pouring out faster than I could control them. 27 years of swallowed pride and dismissed feelings were erupting all at once. But Jessica never had to learn responsibility, did she? Jessica got her apartment deposit paid for. Jessica got her wardrobe funded. Jessica got her spring internship in California because you paid for her flight and housing. Meanwhile, I've been living in my childhood bedroom, saving every penny, taking every extra shift, trying to prove that I'm worth investing in. My mother's face had gone pale. Porter, we've never played favorites. Never played favorites? I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my photos. Here's Jessica's 21st birthday party. Remember this? You rented out the whole back room at Romano's, hired a DJ, invited 50 people, cost you about $3,000. I swiped to another photo. Here's my 21st birthday. Pizza at home. Just family. You gave me a $50 gift card to Best Buy and told me to pick something practical. Jessica was staring at the floor now, her excitement about the car completely deflated. She knew I was right. She had always known. Or how about family vacations? Jessica went to Europe with her college friends last summer. Who paid for that? She needed the cultural experience, Dad mumbled. When was the last time I went on a family vacation? Actually, don't answer that. I'll tell you. Never. Every time you planned a trip, there was some reason I couldn't go. Too expensive to add another person. I had work commitments you wouldn't let me reschedule. The hotel rooms were already booked for 3 people. I picked up the piggy bank again, turning it over in my hands. The plastic was cheap, the kind that would crack if dropped. The paint on the cartoon eyes was already chipping. You know what really gets me? You didn't even try to hide it anymore. You used to at least pretend that things were equal. You'd buy me something small when you bought Jessica something big, just to maintain the illusion. But this is you telling me exactly where I stand. My father's face was red now, anger replacing embarrassment. You're being ungrateful, Porter. We've given you a roof over your head. A roof I pay rent for. $800 a month to live in my childhood bedroom while Jessica's apartment is completely subsidized. That's temporary help until she gets established. It's been 2 years, Dad. She's established. She has a job. She has benefits. She makes more money than I do, because she doesn't have student loan payments eating up half her salary. The truth was crystallizing with each word I spoke. This was not about Christmas gifts. This was about a fundamental inequality that had shaped my entire adult life. Every decision I had made, every sacrifice I had accepted, every limitation I had worked within, had been based on the assumption that my parents treated their children fairly. But they didn't. They never had. Jessica was their investment portfolio. I was their tax write-off. Here's what I think happened. I continued, my voice growing steadier as my anger transformed into clarity. You decided a long time ago that Jessica was going to be your success story. The pretty daughter who would graduate college, marry well, give you grandchildren you could be proud of. I was the backup plan. The reliable son who would always be there to help with the heavy lifting, to take care of you when you got old, to never ask for too much. My mother started crying, but I couldn't tell if it was from guilt or frustration. That's not true, Porter. Isn't it? Name one thing, one single thing, where you invested in my future, the same way you invested in Jessica's. The room fell silent again. They couldn't answer because there was no answer. The piggy bank is perfect, I said finally. It's exactly the right gift. Because it shows me exactly what you think of me. I'm the child who needs to learn about saving money. Jessica is the adult who deserves to have money spent on her. I looked at my sister, who was now openly crying. For a moment, I felt bad for her. None of this was really her fault. She had simply accepted what was offered, the way any rational person would. But she had also never questioned it. She had never wondered why her brother was working so hard for so little. She had never suggested that maybe, just maybe, the playing field was not level. I'm done, I said quietly. I'm done pretending this is normal. I'm done making excuses for you. I'm done hoping that someday you'll see me the way you see her. I headed toward the stairs, the piggy bank still in my hand. Where are you going? My father called after me. To pack. I climbed the stairs to my childhood bedroom, each step feeling like I was ascending toward freedom rather than retreat. The hallway walls were covered with family photos, and for the first time, I really looked at them. In every single picture, Jessica was front and center. I was either cropped out, standing in the background, or missing entirely. My bedroom was a time capsule of arrested development. Sports trophies from high school track, faded posters of bands I no longer listened to, a desk I had used for homework 20 years ago. But it was also filled with the remnants of my adult life that had never been allowed to fully bloom. Work clothes hanging in a closet that still contained my high school letter jacket. Tax documents filed in a box next to old video games. A grown man's responsibilities crammed into a teenager's space. I pulled my suitcases from under the bed and started packing methodically. Every item went through a mental filter. Did I buy this myself, or was it a gift from my parents? Anything they had given me stayed behind. I was surprised how little that actually was. My work clothes, my laptop, my books, my personal documents. The pile of things I was taking fit easily into 2 suitcases and a backpack. As I folded my shirts, I could hear the argument continuing downstairs. Jessica's voice, high and defensive. My mother's crying. My father's angry footsteps pacing across the hardwood floor. But their words sounded distant and unimportant now, like dialogue from a television show playing in another room. I was almost finished packing when my mother appeared in the doorway. Porter, please. Let's talk about this rationally. I continued folding, not looking up. There's nothing rational to discuss. You made your choice. I'm making mine. We love you just as much as we love Jessica. No, you don't. And that's okay. You're allowed to have a favorite child. But I'm also allowed to stop pretending it doesn't hurt. She sat down on my bed, her weight making the old springs creak. We always thought you were more independent, more capable of taking care of yourself. I finally looked at her. That's a nice way of saying you never thought I needed help. You're so strong, Porter. You always have been. Jessica is more fragile. She needs more support. Jessica is 3 years younger than me and makes $60,000 a year. How fragile can she be? My mother didn't have an answer for that. She watched me pack in silence for a few minutes, then tried a different approach. Where will you go? You can't just leave like this. I'm 27 years old. I have a job and savings. I'll figure it out. But this is your home. I stopped packing and really looked at her. No, it isn't. This is Jessica's home. I've just been renting a room. The truth of that statement hit both of us at the same time. This house had been designed around Jessica's comfort and happiness. The furniture in the common areas reflected her taste. The kitchen was stocked with foods she liked. The television was always tuned to shows she wanted to watch. I had been a guest in my own family's home, tolerated but never truly welcomed into the inner circle. "Your father is worried about you," she said weakly. "My father is worried about losing his retirement plan. Who's going to help with the yard work now? Who's going to fix things around the house? Who's going to be here when you get old and need someone to drive you to doctor appointments?" My mother flinched. I had hit the truth dead center. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 27 years making me feel like I wasn't good enough to deserve what you freely gave to Jessica. I zipped up my second suitcase and looked around the room one more time. There was nothing else I wanted to take. Everything that mattered to me, I had earned myself. "Porter, please. Stay. We can work this out." But I was already moving toward the door. As I carried my bags downstairs, I could hear my father on the phone with someone, his voice hushed and urgent. Jessica was sitting in the kitchen, no longer crying, but staring blankly at her new car keys. I loaded my belongings into my Honda Civic, the engine protesting as it started. The irony was not lost on me that I was making my dramatic exit in a car that might not make it to the end of the street. But at least it was my car, bought with my money, maintained with my labor. As I backed out of the driveway, I could see my parents standing in the doorway. My mother was crying again. My father looked angry and confused. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. I drove through our neighborhood slowly, taking in the Christmas decorations and warm lights in windows. Other families were probably finishing their holiday breakfast, opening gifts, enjoying each other's company. Normal families who loved their children equally. Families where gifts were given based on need and affection, not on some invisible hierarchy of worthiness. The streets were mostly empty at 3 in the morning. I had been driving aimlessly for about an hour when I realized I was going in circles, passing the same landmarks over and over. The BMW dealership where Jessica's car had come from. The community college where I had studied accounting. The pizza place where I had worked nights to pay for classes. It was at the BMW dealership that I made an impulsive decision that would change everything. I pulled into their parking lot, even though they were closed, and called their customer service line from the number on their website. "BMW customer service, this is David. How can I help you?" "Hi, David. I have a question about a vehicle that was purchased from your dealership yesterday. A midnight blue 3 Series with premium package." "Certainly, sir. Can I have the VIN number?" I read him the number I had memorized from seeing it on the sticker in Jessica's windshield. "Yes. I see that vehicle in our system. How can I help you? Can you tell me whose name the car is registered under?" There was a pause. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can only release that information to authorized parties. Are you the registered owner or a listed contact?" "I think I might be. The name would be Porter Matthews." Another pause. Longer this time. "Yes, sir. The vehicle is registered to Porter Matthews. Are you calling about your new car?" The world tilted sideways. "I'm sorry, what?" "The BMW 3 Series registered to Porter Matthews. Did you have a question about your vehicle?" I hung up the phone and sat in my car, staring at the dealership. Jessica's BMW was registered in my name. My parents had used my identity to buy the car. That's when my phone rang. A voicemail from my father, left while I was talking to BMW customer service. "Porter, you need to come home right now. If you don't return that car immediately, we're going to report it stolen to the police. Don't be stupid about this." I played the message 3 times, trying to make sense of it. What car? The only car I had was my 15-year-old Honda, unless they meant Jessica's BMW. The BMW that was apparently registered in my name. The BMW that I had never seen, never test-driven, never signed for, and certainly never agreed to purchase. The BMW that was, according to the customer service representative, legally mine. I started my Honda and drove home. Not because my father had threatened me, but because I suddenly had a lot of questions that needed answers. I pulled into the driveway just as the sun was rising. My parents' house looked different in the morning light, less like a home and more like a crime scene. The BMW was still parked in the same spot, the red bow now looking obscene in the context of what I had just learned. My father met me at the door before I could even get out of my car. His face was flushed with anger, and something else I couldn't quite identify. Fear, maybe. "Where the hell have you been? Do you have any idea how worried we were?" "Worried about what?" That I might find out the truth? Don't start with your drama, Porter. We need to discuss this like adults. I followed him inside, where my mother and Jessica were sitting at the kitchen table. Jessica still looked like she had been crying, but my mother appeared more composed. They had obviously been planning what to say to me. Sit down, my father said, gesturing to the empty chair across from them. I'll stand. This won't take long. I pulled out my phone and played his voicemail for everyone to hear. Porter, you need to come home right now. If you don't return that car immediately, we're going to report it stolen to the police. Don't be stupid about this. The silence that followed was deafening. Want to explain to me how I could steal a car that's registered in my name? My mother's face went white. Jessica looked confused. My father's jaw tightened. You talked to the dealership, he said. It wasn't a question. I did. Interesting conversation. Apparently, I bought a $70,000 car yesterday and somehow forgot about it. Porter, my mother started, but I held up my hand. No, you don't get to talk right now. You get to listen while I figure out exactly what you've done. I sat down at my laptop and pulled up my credit monitoring website. I had signed up for it years ago when identity theft was becoming more common, but I rarely checked it. My credit had always been mediocre despite my responsible financial behavior, which had puzzled me. Now it was starting to make sense. Let's see what we have here, I said, scrolling through my credit report. BMW Financial Services. $72,000 auto loan opened yesterday. That's interesting. I don't remember applying for a loan. My father was gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles were white. Chase credit card. $15,000 limit. Opened 6 months ago. Also interesting, since I don't have a Chase credit card. Jessica was looking back and forth between our parents and me, clearly not understanding what was happening. American Express. $25,000 limit. Opened 2 years ago. I definitely don't have an American Express card. The list went on. Credit card after credit card, all opened in my name, all with substantial balances, all completely unknown to me. Want to know the really interesting part? I said, turning my laptop screen toward them. My credit utilization is at 87%. My debt-to-income ratio is completely shot. According to this, I'm one missed payment away from bankruptcy. My mother was crying again, but these weren't the manipulative tears from earlier. These were tears of panic. How long have you been using my identity? I asked quietly. Porter, we can explain, my father said. How long? It started small, my mother whispered. Just a credit card to help Jessica with college expenses. How long? 5 years, my father admitted. 5 years. Jessica's entire college career and beyond. 5 years of my life where every financial decision I made was undermined by decisions I never knew were being made in my name. Is this why I couldn't get approved for my apartment 2 years ago? Because my credit was destroyed by debt I didn't know I had? My father nodded reluctantly. Is this why I've been living here, paying you rent, instead of building equity in my own place? Another nod. Is this why I couldn't qualify for a decent car loan when my Honda started breaking down? Porter, we never meant for it to go this far, my mother said. How far did you mean for it to go? Where exactly was the line you weren't going to cross? I was accessing account after account, each one revealing a new layer of the betrayal. Credit cards for Jessica's spring break trips, a personal loan for her apartment deposit, store cards for her furniture and clothing. My God, I breathed, looking at the numbers. You've stolen over $100,000 from me. We were going to pay it back, my father said weakly. With what money? You're both retired. Your only income is Social Security and Dad's pension. How exactly were you planning to pay back $100,000? We thought Jessica would help once she got established. I looked at my sister, who was staring at the table. Jessica, did you know about this? She nodded without looking up. You knew they were using my identity to pay for your life? I thought it was temporary, she whispered. For 5 years. You thought it was temporary? I'm sorry, Porter. I didn't know how to stop it. The betrayal was complete now. Not only had my parents systematically destroyed my financial future, but Jessica had been complicit the entire time. Every vacation she took, every designer outfit she wore, every luxury she enjoyed had been paid for with my stolen identity. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing up. I'm going to contact every single one of these creditors and report the fraud. I'm going to file a police report for identity theft. I'm going to dispute every charge and every account that was opened without my knowledge. My father stood up too, his face red with anger. If you do that, we'll go to prison. Yes, you will. Because what you did is a federal crime. We're your parents, Porter. You can't destroy your own family. You already destroyed this family when you decided to steal from me to pay for Jessica's lifestyle. I was heading for the door when my mother called after me. Porter, please, we made a mistake. We can fix this. I turned back to look at them one more time. My father, defiant even in defeat. My mother, crying and desperate. Jessica, small and ashamed, but still sitting in the kitchen that had been decorated with money stolen from me. The only mistake you made was getting caught, I said. And the only thing I'm going to fix is my credit report. I walked out of their house for the second time in 12 hours. But this time I wasn't running away from disappointment. I was walking toward justice. I drove straight to the nearest FedEx office and spent the morning printing out every piece of documentation I could find. Credit reports, account statements, transaction histories, loan agreements that bore my forged signature. The scope of the fraud was even worse than I had initially realized. The BMW was just the most recent and obvious theft. Hidden beneath it was a complex web of financial crimes that had been building for years. Every major expense in Jessica's life had been filtered through my identity. Her college tuition overages when her scholarship didn't cover everything. Her study abroad program in Italy. Her graduation trip to Hawaii. Her apartment lease, her furniture, her car insurance, even her gym membership. I had been systematically robbed of my financial future while being made to feel guilty for not being as successful as my sister. At a coffee shop across from FedEx, I called the fraud departments of each credit card company. The conversations followed a depressing pattern. Chase Fraud Department. This is Amanda. Hi, Amanda. I need to report identity theft. I have multiple accounts in my name that I never opened. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Can I have your social security number to access your accounts? After verification, the truth came out. Mr. Matthews, I see you have 3 Chase accounts, 2 credit cards, and a personal loan. The total balance across all accounts is $48,000. I need to dispute all of it. I never opened any of these accounts. I understand your concern, sir. However, our records show that these accounts have been actively used for several years. The most recent activity was yesterday. Are you saying someone has been using your identity for 5 years without your knowledge? That's exactly what I'm saying. There was a pause. Sir, if that's true, you need to file a police report immediately. This level of identity theft is a federal crime. The call to American Express was even worse. Mr. Matthews, your account shows a current balance of $39,000. The account has been used consistently for travel, dining, and retail purchases. Many of the transactions show point-of-sale signatures. Those aren't my signatures. Sir, we have 5 years of signature verification on file. If these signatures are fraudulent, we're looking at a very serious crime. By the time I finished calling all the creditors, the total damage was clear. $167,000 in debt across 11 different accounts. All in my name. All actively used. All completely destroying my credit rating and my financial future. But the more I investigated, the more I realized this was even more calculated than simple identity theft. My parents hadn't just stolen from me. They had engineered my dependence on them. Every time I had applied for an apartment and been denied, they offered to let me stay home longer. Every time I couldn't qualify for a decent car loan, they suggested I save up a little more. Every time I wondered why my credit score was so low despite my responsible behavior, they had sympathy and advice about the challenges facing young adults in today's economy. They had created the problems that kept me trapped, then positioned themselves as the loving parents helping me through difficult times. My phone rang. It was my father. Porter, we need to talk. Unless you're calling to confess to the police, we have nothing to discuss. Don't be stupid about this. If you report us, Jessica gets dragged into it too. She could lose her job. Her whole life could be ruined. Her life was built on money stolen from me. If it gets ruined, That's called consequences. She's your sister. She's an accessory to a federal crime. Porter, listen to me. We can work this out privately. We'll transfer everything to Jessica's name. We'll take responsibility for the payments. Your credit will be clean. I almost laughed. How? You're retired. You have no income stream capable of servicing $167,000 in debt, and Jessica makes $60,000 a year. Even if she dedicated her entire salary to paying this off, it would take her 3 years. We'll figure something out. You'll figure something out? Like you figured out how to pay for Jessica's lifestyle by destroying my financial future? Like you figured out how to make me feel like a failure while you were actively sabotaging my success? There was a long pause. What do you want, Porter? I want you to go to prison. I want Jessica to lose everything she bought with my stolen identity. I want my credit restored. And I want the whole world to know what you really are. You're angry. I understand that. But think about this rationally. If you destroy us, you destroy yourself too. We're family. When this all comes out, it reflects on you too. No, it doesn't. It reflects on you. I'm the victim here. I hung up and immediately called the FBI's Financial Crimes Hotline. FBI Financial Crimes Division. This is Agent Thompson. Agent Thompson, I need to report a complex identity theft case involving multiple family members over several years. How much money are we talking about, sir? $167,000 so far, but I think there's more. Sir, I'm going to need you to come in immediately. That level of fraud suggests organized criminal activity. Agent Thompson was right. As I drove to the FBI field office, I realized this wasn't just family dysfunction or poor financial boundaries. This was systematic criminal enterprise, planned and executed over years, designed to transfer wealth from me to Jessica, while keeping me dependent on the very people who were robbing me. My parents weren't just bad parents. They were career criminals who had been using family relationships to enable their crimes, and I was about to bring their entire operation crashing down. Agent Sarah Thompson was younger than I expected, probably early 30s, with short brown hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Her office was cramped but organized, walls covered with charts and timelines from other financial crimes investigations. Mr. Matthews, I've reviewed the preliminary information you provided over the phone. Before we proceed, I need to tell you that what you're describing isn't just identity theft. If your allegations are accurate, we're looking at conspiracy, wire fraud, mail fraud, and potentially RICO violations. RICO, like organized crime, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act applies when there's a pattern of criminal activity conducted through an ongoing enterprise. Your family appears to qualify. She pulled out a thick file folder. Here's what makes your case particularly interesting. Your parents, Robert and Linda Matthews, are already on our radar. I stared at her. What do you mean? We've been investigating a construction fraud scheme involving your father's company, Matthews Contracting. He's been systematically overcharging clients, using substandard materials, and filing fraudulent insurance claims on projects that were never damaged. She opened the file and showed me photographs of construction sites, invoices, insurance documents. We estimate he's stolen about $400,000 from clients over the past 3 years. My mouth went dry. 400,000? But that's not all. Your mother has been running a parallel scheme involving elderly relatives. She's been appointed as power of attorney for 3 different family members and has been systematically draining their accounts. Agent Thompson pulled out another stack of documents. Your great-aunt Margaret, your grandfather's cousin William, and your mother's uncle Frank. All 3 are in assisted living facilities. All 3 have had their life savings stolen. I felt like I was falling down a rabbit hole. How much? Combined? About $200,000. $600,000. My parents weren't just thieves. They were running a criminal enterprise that had been operating for years. The identity theft against you fits the pattern, Agent Thompson continued. They needed additional credit streams to fund Jessica's lifestyle while maintaining their own standard of living. Using your identity allowed them to access credit lines they couldn't qualify for themselves. How did you find out about all this? One of your father's clients became suspicious when a roof replacement that was supposed to cost $15,000 was billed at $30,000. He hired a private investigator who discovered the pattern of overcharging. The PI contacted us, and we've been building a case for 8 months. She pulled out a calendar and showed me dates marked in red ink. Here's where it gets interesting for your case. The timing of your identity theft correlates directly with their other criminal activities. Every time they needed to cover up money they had stolen, they opened new accounts in your name. So I was their insurance policy. You were their escape hatch. If any of their other schemes got discovered, they could disappear the stolen money into accounts bearing your name, making it look like you were the one living beyond your means. The implications were staggering. Not only had my parents been stealing from me, they had been setting me up to take the blame for all their other crimes. What happens now? Agent Thompson leaned back in her chair. We'd like you to cooperate with our investigation. We're planning to execute search warrants on their home, your father's business, and your mother's financial records. But we need someone with inside knowledge to help us understand their methods. What would I have to do? Wear a wire. Get them to admit to the crimes on record. Help us trace the money trail by providing access to accounts they might not know we've discovered. The thought of confronting my parents while wearing FBI surveillance equipment was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. There's something else, Agent Thompson said. Jessica's involvement makes her vulnerable to charges as well. Conspiracy requires knowledge and participation in the criminal enterprise. If we can prove she knew the money was stolen, she could face the same penalties as your parents. What kind of penalties? Federal fraud charges typically carry sentences of 10 to 20 years. Financial conspiracy can add another 5 to 10. If we can prove RICO violations, we're looking at up to 40 years in federal prison. 40 years. My parents could spend the rest of their lives in prison. Mr. Matthews, I need to ask you directly. Are you prepared to see your family members go to federal prison for what they've done to you? I thought about the piggy bank with $2. I thought about 5 years of destroyed credit. I thought about Jessica's BMW and her designer clothes and her luxury apartment, all paid for with my stolen future. I thought about the elderly relatives being robbed in their nursing homes. I thought about the clients being cheated by my father's construction fraud. Agent Thompson, they stopped being my family the moment they decided I was worth less than the money they could steal from me. Then let's bring them down. She opened a new folder and pulled out a legal document. This is a cooperation agreement. If you sign this, you become a federal witness. We'll provide you with legal protection, help restore your credit, and ensure you receive restitution from any recovered assets. I signed without hesitation. Welcome to the team, Mr. Matthews. Now, let's plan your parents' downfall. 3 weeks of planning led to this moment. The FBI had mapped out my parents' entire criminal network, traced money flows through dozens of accounts, and coordinated with multiple law enforcement agencies across 3 states. What had started as my personal betrayal had evolved into one of the largest family-based fraud investigations in the state's history. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Jessica was throwing herself a belated birthday party at the country club, the same country club whose membership fees had been paid with money stolen from my great-aunt Margaret. The guest list included extended family members, business associates of my father's construction company, and several of the elderly relatives my mother had been defrauding. I arrived at the party wearing a wire and carrying court documents that would change everything. The country club's main dining room had been decorated with balloons and streamers. Jessica was wearing a new designer dress that probably cost more than most people made in a week. She was laughing and posing for pictures next to a table laden with expensive gifts. My parents were working the room like politicians. My father glad-handing business associates, while my mother charmed the elderly relatives she had been systematically robbing. "Porter," Jessica called out when she saw me. "I'm so glad you came. I wasn't sure you would after Christmas." "I wouldn't miss this for the world," I said, and I meant it. I mingled for about an hour, making small talk while the FBI agents positioned themselves around the building. Agent Thompson was posing as a server. 2 more agents were dressed as country club maintenance workers. Another team was waiting in the parking lot. At exactly 7:30 p.m., as Jessica was preparing to cut her birthday cake, my father stood up to make a toast. "I want to thank everyone for celebrating Jessica's birthday with us," he began, raising his champagne glass. "Linda and I are so proud of the woman she's become. Her success reflects the values we've tried to instill in both our children." That was my cue. Speaking of success, I said, standing up and pulling out a thick folder of documents. I thought this would be a perfect time to share some news about the family business. My father's smile faltered. Porter, this isn't the time. Actually, it's the perfect time. See, I've been doing some research into how our family has been so successful, how Jessica could afford such a nice lifestyle on her entry-level salary, how Dad's construction business has been so profitable, how Mom has been such a generous caretaker for our elderly relatives. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. This is a federal search warrant authorizing the seizure of all assets belonging to Robert Matthews, Linda Matthews, and Jessica Matthews in connection with conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering charges. The room went completely silent. "This is a joke, right?" Jessica said nervously. "No joke. Agent Thompson, would you like to introduce yourself?" Agent Thompson stepped forward, her FBI credentials clearly visible. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Agent Sarah Thompson with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're here to execute federal arrest warrants." The chaos that followed was immediate and complete. Guests started standing up and backing away from our table. My mother dropped her champagne glass, the crystal shattering on the marble floor. My father was looking around frantically, probably calculating escape routes. "Robert Matthews," Agent Thompson continued, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, and violations of the RICO Act." Two agents appeared behind my father, handcuffs ready. "Linda Matthews, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and identity theft." More agents moved toward my mother, who had started hyperventilating. "Jessica Matthews, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory to identity theft." Jessica's face went white. "I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't know." "Miss Matthews," Agent Thompson said patiently, "we have 5 years of evidence showing your direct participation in fraudulent activities. You'll have plenty of opportunity to explain your involvement to a federal judge." As the handcuffs clicked into place, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, certainly. Relief that the truth was finally coming out. But also sadness for the family that could have been, if they had ever chosen to love me as much as they loved money. "Porter," my father called out as they led him away, "you've destroyed your own family." "No, Dad. You destroyed our family. I just called the police." The guests were filing out rapidly, some stopping to stare at the spectacle, others hurrying away as if criminal behavior might be contagious. Within 20 minutes, the party room was empty, except for FBI agents and evidence collection teams. Agent Thompson approached me as I sat alone at what had been the head table. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, I thought I'd feel worse about this. It's normal to have mixed emotions. They're still your family." "No, they're not. They stopped being my family when they decided to steal my identity to fund a lifestyle I couldn't afford. Real family doesn't systematically destroy each other for money." Over the next several hours, I watched federal agents catalog and seize everything my parents owned. The house I had grown up in, now revealed to be mortgaged far beyond its value using fraudulent income documentation. My father's construction equipment, purchased with money stolen from clients. My mother's jewelry, bought with funds embezzled from elderly relatives. And Jessica's BMW, which was repossessed that same night and returned to the dealership as evidence of identity theft. By midnight, my parents were in federal custody. Jessica was being processed at the county jail, pending transfer to federal court, and their entire criminal enterprise had been dismantled. I drove home to my new apartment, the one I had been able to rent after the FBI helped expedite the restoration of my credit. As I pulled into the parking space next to my legitimately purchased used Honda Civic, I realized I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time in my adult life, every aspect of my existence was truly mine. My apartment, my car, my job, my bank account, my future. No one was stealing from me. No one was sabotaging my credit. No one was making me feel guilty for wanting basic fairness. I was free. 6 months later, I sat in the federal courthouse watching my parents receive their sentences. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who had clearly seen enough financial fraud to last several lifetimes, was not inclined toward mercy. "Mr. Matthews," she said, looking at my father, You systematically defrauded clients, insurance companies, and your own family members over a period of 5 years. The total amount of your theft exceeds $600,000. More troubling is the psychological abuse you inflicted on your own son, engineering his dependence while destroying his financial future. My father stood silently as she continued. You will serve 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You will pay full restitution to all victims, including your son. All assets acquired through criminal activity will be forfeited to the federal government. My mother's sentencing was equally harsh. 10 years for conspiracy and elder abuse, plus full restitution and asset forfeiture. Jessica's hearing had been held separately the week before. Her cooperation with federal investigators had earned her a lighter sentence of 3 years in federal prison and 5 years probation, but she had lost everything. Her apartment, her job, her savings, her designer clothes, even her college degree was under review by the university when they discovered her tuition had been paid with stolen money. As we left the courthouse, Agent Thompson walked with me to the parking lot. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Like justice," I said simply. The restitution process had been surprisingly swift. The federal government's Victim Compensation Fund had already restored my credit to excellent status and provided me with a settlement of $200,000 from the sale of my parents' assets. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life, and every penny of it was legitimately mine. But the money wasn't the most important outcome. The most important outcome was the truth. For 27 years, I had been made to feel like I wasn't good enough, wasn't successful enough, wasn't worthy of the same love and investment my parents gave to Jessica. I had internalized their treatment of me as evidence of my own inadequacy. I had worked harder and harder, trying to prove I deserved their respect, never realizing that the game was rigged from the beginning. Now I knew better. The problem was never me. The problem was them. With the settlement money, I had done something I never thought possible. I started my own business. Porter Financial Protection Services was a consulting firm that helped families recognize and prevent financial abuse. My first clients were other victims of family fraud who had been referred by the FBI. My second clients were small businesses who wanted to protect themselves from the kind of construction fraud my father had perpetrated. Within 6 months, I was making more money than I ever had as an employee, helping people who had been victimized the way I had been victimized. My office was in a nice building downtown. I drove a reliable car that I had purchased with cash. I lived in an apartment that reflected my taste and priorities, not someone else's preferences. More importantly, I had built a life surrounded by people who valued honesty, integrity, and mutual respect. My girlfriend Sarah was a teacher I had met at a financial literacy workshop I conducted for her school. She was kind, funny, and refreshingly direct about her feelings. When she said she cared about me, I believed her, because she had no hidden agenda and no reason to lie. My business partner Marcus was a former FBI agent who specialized in white-collar crime. He was reliable, ethical, and shared my passion for protecting victims of financial fraud. Our friendship was based on professional respect and common values, not family obligation or guilt. My chosen family was small but genuine. Every relationship in my life was built on mutual benefit and authentic affection. No one was using me. No one was stealing from me. No one was making me feel like I owed them something I couldn't afford to give. Christmas morning, 1 year after the piggy bank incident, I woke up in my own apartment and made coffee in my own kitchen. I had bought myself a few modest gifts and wrapped them with care. Not because I needed anything, but because I wanted to celebrate how far I had come. At 10 a.m., my phone rang. It was Jessica, calling from federal prison. "Porter, it's me. I know. I wanted to wish you Merry Christmas. Thank you." There was a long pause. "Porter, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." This was the first time she had apologized since her arrest. During the investigation and trial, she had maintained that she was a victim too, manipulated by our parents into accepting stolen money. But 6 months in federal prison had apparently given her time to think. "I know you are," I said. "Do you think you could ever forgive me?" I had been expecting this question. "Jessica, forgiveness isn't something you can ask for. It's something that happens when the person you hurt is ready to let go of their anger. Are you ready? I thought about it carefully. I'm not angry anymore. But that doesn't mean I trust you. And it doesn't mean I want you in my life. She was crying now. But we're family. No, we're not. We're people who happen to share DNA. Family is built on love, trust, and mutual respect. We've never had that. Maybe we could start over when I get out. Jessica, you'll be in prison for 3 years, then on probation for 5 more. By the time you're truly free, I'll be 37 years old. I'll have built a complete life without you. Why would I want to go backwards? Because I'm your sister. Being my sister is not an achievement. It's an accident of birth. If you want to be part of my life, you have to earn it the way everyone else does. Through honesty, consistency, and respect. How can I do that from prison? You can't. Which is why this conversation is probably goodbye. I hung up the phone and sat quietly in my living room. Outside, snow was falling gently on the city. Other families were probably gathering for holiday celebrations, opening gifts, creating memories. I felt no sadness about missing those gatherings. I felt no loneliness about spending Christmas alone. I felt no regret about the choices that had led me to this moment. For the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged, in a space I had created, with relationships I had chosen, living a life built on my own values and decisions. That afternoon, I drove to the cemetery where my grandmother was buried. She had died when I was 15, before I fully understood the dynamics of my family. But I remembered her as one of the few people who had ever made me feel unconditionally valued. I sat by her headstone and told her about everything that had happened, about the piggy bank and the BMW, about the identity theft and the federal investigation, about my parents' arrest and Jessica's imprisonment, about my new business and my new life. I think you would be proud of me, Grandma, I said aloud. I finally learned the difference between being loved and being used. I finally learned that family is supposed to make you stronger, not tear you down. I finally learned that I'm worth more than $2 in a plastic pig. As the sun set on Christmas Day, I drove home through the quiet streets. I passed the house where I grew up, now empty and scheduled for demolition to pay restitution to fraud victims. I passed the BMW dealership where Jessica's car had been purchased with my stolen identity. I passed the country club where my parents' criminal enterprise had finally been exposed. But I didn't stop at any of those places. They were part of my past, not my future. I went home to my apartment, made dinner for one, and settled in to read a book. Tomorrow, I would go back to work helping other people protect themselves from financial predators. Next week, I would have dinner with Sarah and continue building a relationship based on honesty and mutual respect. Next month, I would expand my business to help even more families avoid the trap I had escaped. The piggy bank had been intended as an insult, a reminder of my place in the family hierarchy. But in the end, it had been a gift. It had shown me exactly who my parents really were, and exactly how little they valued me. And that knowledge had set me free. Some people are born into families that love and support them unconditionally. Others have to build their own families from scratch, choosing people who earn the right to be part of their lives through kindness, honesty, and respect. Both paths can lead to happiness, but only if you're brave enough to walk away from people who treat you as less than you're worth. My parents gave Jessica a BMW with a red bow. They gave me $2 in a piggy bank. But in trying to humiliate me, they accidentally gave me the greatest gift of all, the motivation to build a life where I would never again accept being treated as a second-class member of my own family. I learned that true family isn't defined by genetics, but by mutual respect, honesty, and genuine love. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from people who diminish your worth, even when they share your DNA. Success built on integrity will always outlast wealth built on deception. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced favoritism in your family that made you question your worth? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family dysfunction and building the life you deserve. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that they're worth more than how others treat them. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope my experience helps you recognize your own value, regardless of how others choose to treat you. Until next time, Remember that you deserve to be surrounded by people who see your worth and celebrate your success.